All right. Good morning. Oh, that was weak. All right, come on. Good morning. There we go. We're a little bit caffeinated. We're getting there. Good morning, Creative Mornings DC. My name is Kaylee. I am the host of our chapter, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our last Creative Morning of the year. Just a check in yep, okay, we're processing. We are a volunteer only machine, a hell of a volunteer only machine, and that means we need a break. So December and January we take off. So this is our last one for the year. We'll see you again in February. I will remind you again later on. But we are here today for growth. That's fine. That's totally fine. Peter's going to walk us through it. I'm sure we're all feeling a certain way. This is a tough one, I think, to end on. But our theme is growth. It was chosen by our Sacramento chapter and illustrated by Amber Rankin. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Did you know Creative Mornings is the largest creative community in the world? That's what they say. So, yeah. Don't know what the metrics are on that, but if we say it, it is true. It started in 2008 by Tina Roth Eisenberg, known as Swiss Miss, and out of the desire for ongoing, accessible events for creatives, originally in the New York scene, and now we are global. Look how global we are. And that means that as we process what growth means to us individually, as a community, as people trying to exist in this world, chapters all around the world, creatives all around the world are thinking about the same thing, processing the same thing. And there's connection there. So as we are thinking about what growth means to us, we are not alone in doing so. And speaking of not being alone, if you'd like to meet some other creatives around the world without traveling to do so, you can do that in a virtual field trip. Who here knows what these are? Raise your hand. Well, a quarter of us. Not bad. Okay. For the rest of us, you get the newsletter, the monthly newsletter, and in there's a lot of information, and then there's a button about field trips. They are based on the monthly theme and hosted by a global chapter somewhere. You might be in someone's pottery studio. You might be doing a breath workshop. You might be writing Mad Lib poetry. The world is your oyster as creatives around the world. So that's what that is all about. And locally here, not digitally, in person, IRL, you can meet other creatives because you bring a friend and you make a friend. Okay, so raise your hand if this is your first Creative Mornings DC. First Creative Mornings DC. Woo! Wow! Nice group. Okay. Raise your hand if you are the friend that brought the newcomer. Wow. Impressive. Okay. That is how we came to be. The DC chapter started in 2013, and we've grown and grown and grown. Our email list is like 7,200, Lena, something like that. And we grew because we care about each other and want to be together IRL. In these times, we are surviving. So, the other thing I forgot to say about us being global is that when you travel, there's like however many chapters we have. You are traveling on a Friday, check out that city that you're visiting and see if that chapter is having their event and meet some creatives in that city. Raise your hand if you have done so. You've gone to another city's Creative Mornings. Raise them high. Be proud. Oh, yes. See, this is why HQ loves us. So we do the thing that they say we should do. Okay, raise your hand if you are belong to another chapter, but are visiting us today. Yes. What chapter? Philly in the house. Welcome. I hope you enjoy it. I hope I'm doing it correctly. Please don't tattle on me. Okay. Yeah, I think we're good. And now this part. Adobe. Raise your hand if you've never heard of Adobe before. If you've never heard these letters put together in this way before. Okay, we're good. We all know what Adobe is. Raise your hand if you are a frequent, semi-frequent user of Adobe products. Yes. You all are, because you're actual real creatives that do things. I'm just a producer of things. I don't know what you guys do with Adobe. Thank you. Adobe is our global partner. They are a global partner of Creative Mornings. What does that mean? What does that actually mean? I actually finally got an answer to that question recently. They have helped open 2 or 3 new chapters globally this year. I forgot to write down the names of those chapters, but we will shout them out on socials later. So we are very grateful for Adobe. We all use Adobe. We love it. We do the creative things. It's all magic. Woo! Okay. Raise your hand if you are familiar with this slide that you've seen all year. The Adobe Creative Apprenticeship. Does everybody know what this is? Has anybody used it? Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, then I'm going to actually read this slide. The Adobe Creative Apprenticeship Program is to support you on your creative journey, wherever that may be going. They offer mentorship, real world projects, and job opportunities. We love those two last words, right? Job opportunities. Okay. So raise your hand if you're going to go and click on this button in the email and see what's going on. Just lie to me. Just lie to me. Yay! Great. Okay. And now bringing again global, local. That is what we do. We are so grateful for our local partners. Plants Alive is a local plant shop in Silver Spring, and they provide all means of event, commercial, and home plant needs. And I just like their tagline. They say they are helping plants and people get along. As somebody that kills plants, I understand what they're getting at. Raise your hand if you like plants. Raise your hand if you're like me and you kill plants. It's okay. We all do it. We're sharing stories of all the plants that we've killed. I love it. Okay. Let's see. So Plants Alive provides our ASL interpretation. If you are coming to an event and need ASL interpretation, you contact us, you slide in the DMs, you email, you get in touch with us, and then Plants Alive provides the funds for that service for us. So we are super grateful for Plants Alive. And we are also grateful for Charlestown AV. They unfortunately couldn't join us today, but they provide our in-kind videography so that we can record and have the videos on the site. It's a great thing for the speaker. It's a great thing for us as a chapter to be able to show globally what we're doing, what we're up to, how we've interpreted the theme, etc. So we're very, very grateful for Charlestown AV. And now the slide that confuses everybody all the time. I'm looking at you, Obi. Our title partner, our local title partner, is Taste Coffee. They did not provide the coffee that you drank this morning. Are we all confused? We're all thoroughly confused. Yes, great. Okay. Our title partner, Taste, provides some funding to us so that we can exist and have our birthday party, etc., which is in March. Taste was launched this year by our own CMDC communities, Obi Okolo, Reggie Black, and Jason Reynolds. Yes. You can get your delivery of their coffee varietals at tastecoffee.com. It's TASTCOFFEE.com. It's taste without the E. So thank you, Obi, since you're sitting right there, for the support. We appreciate it. And now, finally, where we are sitting. This is actually a picture from last year's. We are getting into Umbrella this weekend. Guys, come on. that was a big boo moment. Okay, we're waking up. All right. So thank you so much, Umbrella Art Fair, for hosting us. Thank you to the Square for joining in that hosting. We are sitting in the Square. We are here for Umbrella Art Fair for their fifth year of Umbrella Art Fair. Big woo moment. The art fair is upstairs and across the square. It will be open at 10 a.m. So roughly when we finish, you can go and explore. Okay. So all of our gratitude, and now the real reason you're here, not to hear me babble about Adobe. Peter Chang, our speaker. So probably like many of us, I met Peter for the first time related to No Kings Collective, and over the years have watched, speaking of growth, watched him grow this amazing artistic creative career. And then, a lot of life has been happening for all of us. A lot of life is going on. It just keeps on lifing. And so this is very typical, I think, of what happens for me these days is we reconnected again, not here, not in DC, not anywhere related to our community, but in Aspen, of all places. We saw each other again in Aspen. I was like, oh, we need to make this happen. So this summer we started talking about ending our year, our Creative Mornings year, on this topic that's a doozy to get through, but also to have Peter host us and be our speaker. So it is my deepest pleasure to welcome Peter to the mic.
Good morning, everyone. How you guys feeling today? Yeah? All right, awesome. My name is Peter Chang. I'm the co-founder of Usan Usan, and we're a company, that specializes in placemaking, and we work at the intersection of arts and culture. And our two main initiatives are the Red Eye Night Market and the Umbrella Art Fair, which you guys are here at today, so welcome. I'm here to talk to you guys about Creative Mornings, theme this month, which is growth. And, growth is nonlinear. It has seasons, it has cycles, challenges, and growth also has breakthroughs. Growth is slow, and oftentimes it can be uncomfortable. And if I'm being honest with you guys, I really didn't want to do this talk. When Kaylee and I connected, I told her, hey, let's do it. And then when we did the walkthrough a couple weeks ago, I told her I was pulling out. I was going through a lot I had recently lost a friend. I just was feeling really not in a good place. I felt stuck. And, the reason why I'd agreed to keep going and pushing forward was because I didn't want to be stuck anymore. I wanted to grow. And you have to grow past things. And I'm hoping to get unstuck by doing this talk. So growth is often likened to a journey, right? It's something that challenges us, pushes us to our limits, and defines our sense of identity. And, this topic is pretty open, right? So I didn't know whether to go down a professional or personal path. And oftentimes we try to separate these two paths and compartmentalize. We say they're separate, but the truth is that they're deeply intertwined. Now, I'm not an expert on growth, but I'd like to think of growth as a wheel with 3 spokes. And the first spoke is truth. And the second spoke on that wheel is pain. And the third spoke on that wheel is work. And sometimes you hit a snag in the road and one of your spokes pops out. And if you don't put the spoke back in its proper place, you'll eventually get stuck on the side of the road. And sometimes you never leave that point and get stuck forever. And that's to say that some people just get to a certain point and they stop growing, professionally and personally. But real growth is a never-ending cycle of truth, pain, and work. And I wanted to share my journey of growth with you guys. I've compared it to a plant before. So when Kaylee brought up the plant sponsor, I was just like, along the way, you guys will see where I had to prune and where I had to let certain branches grow stronger, constantly pruning and cultivating. And I think about how much I've grown professionally and personally throughout the years. It's kind of like a mixtape to me. Each track reflects a period of my life that brought on professional and personal growth. So welcome to Creative Mornings. And I'd like to also welcome you to my mixtape release party. All right? My name is Peter Chang, and this is my mixtape. So we're going to start track 1. I call it the Wonder Years. Right? I'm a student of hip hop, and today we're digging through crates, and it starts in 1999. I'm 15 years old. I had this memory when I was talking to Ryan, who's my pastor and also was helping me through this talk. It jogged all these memories, and I thought about seeing Chadwick Boseman, right, Black Panther. He was a student at Howard at the time, and he was rapping and doing spoken word on GW's campus at this event called Liquid Arts, which is a hip-hop showcase, bringing hip-hop heads from all over the area together. And hip-hop is at the root of my growth journey. It's still such a strong foundation to this day for me, and it was my earliest introduction to community and building, community building and dance as an art form. I remember in high school, one of my friends had gone to the mall and found this VHS tape of some breakdancing competition, and he brought it back one day, and we all looked at it together, and I was completely mesmerized, even though I had not actually gone to a b-boy battle myself. So would you believe me if I told you guys I took the red line to my first b-boy battle? I was 15 years old, and I had snuck out of the house. 15, right? And I took the red line from Glenmont to Tenleytown Station to this place called the DC Dance Collective. And I remember going in there, and the energy was just so raw. It was absolutely crazy. It's indescribable to this day, right? These are one of the defining moments in my life. And I immediately fell in love with breakdancing, and I knew with certainty this is what I wanted to do with my life. And back then, b-boys would go to jams in their respective areas, record, again on like the 8mm, those heavy, recording devices that we had back in the day, and they would rip them on VHS tapes, and then when they traveled to other cities, they would exchange, VHS tapes with each other, right? They'd sell them to one another, or they trade them like cards, whatever. But that was really the only way you could get exposed to the different styles and different art forms of b-boying, from different areas. There was no YouTube back then, no Instagram, no TikTok. And back then you could tell where a b-boy was from if you really paid attention to their style and their movement, right? So you could look and say, oh man, like this guy moves like he's from Miami, or this guy is definitely from New York because of his foundation and the way he does his footwork, right? Think about rap back then, right? There was East Coast rap, there was West Coast rap, Chicago had its own style, there was Southern rap. Everyone had these distinct styles, and this idea of originality really was instilled upon me, right? This idea that you shouldn't take other people's ideas, because if you were caught biting moves, the community really shunned you. right? People had distinct movements, signature moves, and the whole mentality was, do you, or you can take something, but you'd have to flip it hard enough that it would become a new move. So if you asked 15-year-old Peter back then, what do you want to do with it for the rest of your life? I told you, I want to be a professional breakdancer, travel the world, be in music videos and movies, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the thing. I'm Asian. Specifically Korean, right? And my parents were not having it, right? The expectations were to be insert model minority stereotype. And because I respected my parents, you know, I did what I had to do, and I applied to school, and I went to college. And I was really unhappy my first year. The truth was, I never wanted to be a stereotype. You know, I didn't want to be an engineer. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to do any of these things. And I couldn't focus. I started to slip up in school. And I knew college wasn't going to work for who I really was deep down. At some point during I think it was my sophomore year, junior year, I mean, it was so long ago, I can't even remember now, right? I just stopped going to classes. I never said anything to my professors. I never said anything to my advisors. I didn't even say anything to my parents. I just stopped fucking going. You know, and can I curse on this? Okay, all right. No, I just wanted to check. I just wanted to make sure. All right. There's a thing called perception paralysis. And I knew that by dropping out, my dad would consider me a fuck up, and society would consider me a failure. And to be honest, it was really shameful. I knew that dropping out would hurt my parents. I knew it would be painful for them. My dad immigrated here to the US in the late 70s and worked in a bunch of different jobs, warehouses, and he eventually landed at the Postal Service. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Both my parents had sacrificed so much for my brother and I. You know, they left their lives back home to create a better life for my brother and I. And because of this decision that I had made, my dad and I barely spoke for the next decade. I felt the pain of neglect and the pain of feeling misunderstood, but I wanted to prove my parents wrong. I knew if I wanted to make a career out of breakdancing, I really needed to put in the work. Can I tell you guys a secret? A true artist is never in it for the money. I quickly realized that, number one, I wasn't making enough money to be a professional breakdancer. And number two, the OG B-boys were never really in it for the money. Regardless, I spent the next year practicing, going to jams, winning battles, I thought I was killing it. You know, I eventually got to go on tour with Jurassic 5. We opened for the Roots. You know, I thought we were like, oh man, this is it. But again, I wasn't really making money. I was just making ends meet. At 19 years old, I joined this crew called the Lions of Zion. They're the oldest crew, breakdancing crew in this area. They're still around today. 35 years, I believe they'll be around this year. So kudos, it's amazing. And once I joined the crew, we would be performing at the Wizards halftime shows back then. And then after we do these Wizard performances, the leader of our crew, Sonny, would all take us out to the nightclub afterwards to party and have a good time. You know, he was sneaking me in even if we were underage. But then I also saw how he was making money. He was bringing people out to have a good time. And the clubs back then, if you were a club promoter, were breaking you off with anywhere between 10 to 20% of the bar sales at the end of the night. So what I do? Broke off and started promoting my own club nights. You know, bringing out friends, the b-boys and dancers that I knew in the community, and everyone in between. I started keeping track of budget spreadsheets of how much I was making each night. I was compiling databases of VIPs, who was spending money on bottle service. I was collecting emails. It was actually my first journey into entrepreneurship and business without even knowing it. Something else incredible happened that year. The movie The Fast and the Furious came out. Right? And it launched this massive car show tour called Hot Import Nights. And at Hot Import Nights, they had these two entertainment stages where they had DJs and all these various forms of entertainment. And it happened to be that they were starting to put together a b-boy battle. And I remember going to my first one at the Dulles Expo Center, and I had walked up to the promoter and I said, "Hey man, are you putting this together?" And he was like, "Yeah, I am." And I said, "Hey, I think you're doing a shit job. It's really not organized. You know, the dancers don't really have confidence in the way the brackets are set up. The judges are questionable, etc." And he just looked at me and goes, "What'd you say to me, kid?" And I said, "I think I could do this way better." And I don't know why this dude even gave me a shot, but he said, "We got another show in Philly in 2 weeks. Get up there, prove it." And then I went up there and organized it. It went amazing. He said, "In 2 more weeks, we're gonna be in Jersey. I'll see you there." 2 weeks later, he said, "We're gonna be in Boston. I'll see you there." Next thing you know, he offered me a job, and I'm traveling all over the country now putting together these b-boy battles for Hot Import Nights. So now every other week I'm traveling to a different city, hosting these jams, and at the same time, when I'm back in town the other weekend, I'm promoting, my club nights. I thought I was the king. I felt I was, flying high. I was like, I'm the king of the club, free bottles, no waiting in line, getting all my friends in, partying. It felt really good. I felt like I was at this upper echelon and nothing, life couldn't get better. But then something happened. One night after the club, a bunch of my friends and I were hanging out at this spot called the Plato's Diner. It's not there anymore in College Park. They had bulldozed it. I mean, it was this legacy institution, but I guess it's not a legacy institution because it's not there anymore. So what am I talking about? And one of my friends at the University of Maryland was taking a performance art class, and he had basically told us about this book he was reading on performance art, and it was showcasing Yves Klein. And in this book, Yves Klein was dragging women naked by their hair and using their bodies as a brush, and pouring paint on them across canvas. And this was at the Guggenheim. And he was telling me, that all the people there were clapping. It's like, oh my God, this is, fine art. And he was selling these pieces for God knows how much money. And then my other friend, who was just, completely shit-faced, said, "Hey, you know what? What if you guys breakdance on canvas and pour paint on your bodies and, fool these suckers into give you tons of money and sell, pass it off as art?" And all of us just got quiet. It was a eureka moment. The following week, we would then break into the art studios at the University of Maryland late at night. I mean, we'd probably 12 o'clock, 1 in the morning, we'd break in and we'd lay out these huge canvases and we'd be, getting these huge wells of paint, and we just started breakdancing on these canvases. We ended up creating these massive Jackson Pollock style canvas pieces, using our bodies as brushes, and it just kept going, right? We just kept creating this body of work. And then after we created this body of work, we were like, okay, well, now we need the Guggenheim, right? In order to sell it to, sell this work and fool these suckers, we need to get in the Guggenheim, right? And this is how 21-year-olds think, right? So we started approaching all these different galleries. No one was having it, I mean, think about it. A bunch of guys coming up like, "Hey man, we're breakdancing, paint. Come on, just give us a show," right? And it took us a while, but eventually, the DCAC, the District of Columbia Art Center, gave us a shot. They said, "You know what? Sounds like a good idea. Go for it." And I think up to that date, we had the biggest turnout that they ever had at a show opening. It was huge. Our heads were exploding. We were like, "Oh my God, this is crazy." But we didn't sell a single piece of our work. And we were like, "Oh well, that's just coincidence. We're gonna have to do another show. We have to keep building our profile." And we would eventually show again at the Sub-Basement Artist Studios in Baltimore. Another huge turnout. We were like, "Oh well, a ton of people came out. It's success, right?" But again, no art sales. Now these pieces were pretty, expensive to produce. It was a lot of time, and we were just losing steam. The group of guys that had come together to put this project together, were being pulled elsewhere, and everyone just decided to separate ways, right? It was a fun project that we had done, but it didn't have legs. But I was still enamored by this world, that I had been exposed to, this world that was fine art. I wanted to be in this world now, and I knew entering it, I'd be starting at zero again. I thought I knew what I wanted. I thought I wanted to be a professional breakdancer, but now I'm starting to question that. So I had to realize the truth. School wasn't for me. I had to acknowledge the pain that I caused my parents from dropping out of school. I had to feel the pain from choosing to do me differently. But I didn't let that paralyze me. To be honest, it fueled me. After a while, another pain followed me. My body had limitations. I wasn't 15 anymore. And yeah, I mean, being 21, 22 now, at that time, it sounds like, you're still pretty young, but, breakdancing took a big toll on my body. There's a reason why there aren't too many 30 or 40-year-old b-boys. Track 2, the struggle bus. So here I am, I'm still promoting, my nightclub, club nights and dancing because, I just love to dance, but I'm realizing I'm aging out of b-boying competitively, so I'm not so passionate about it anymore. And again, I'm not competing. I realized that killing my hopes was not the same as killing my dreams. So now at this point in my life, I'm just partying all the time, not really working towards building anything specific since I decided to give up on being a professional breakdancer. All at the same time, because of the document project, I'm also going to a bunch of different art gallery openings. I'm connecting with different people in the art world. And that's when I met this gallery owner, and we hit it off. I told him about my background in dance, how I promoted nightclubs, and I bring out all these people, and my tour with Hot Import Nights. And eventually, he offered me a job. He said, "Hey, I'm opening this new spot at the National Harbor. I'd love for you to be my marketing director." So I quit promoting clubs. I stopped organizing b-boy battles. And he posed this question to me. He said, "How do we get people out to the National Harbor?" And back then there was no Ferris wheel, there's no restaurants, there's literally just the Gaylord Hotel and this tiny little art gallery. And I thought back to all my experience with dance and the document, and I said, we got to do this differently. We have to think outside of the box. So the solution I came up with was, we don't bring people to the gallery. We take the gallery to the people. And I had remembered one of my relationships with a dancer that used to come to our practice all the time. He had become the manager for the new Adidas store in Georgetown. And I asked him, "Hey, I'm working with this gallery now. I'd love to get a few artists, hang some work at the store. I think it would bring out, a bunch of people. It'd be great visibility for your guys' store. I think your sales would be up." He said, "Hey, why not? Let's try it out." And this was back then when, this is 2008. Like, no one's doing these kind of store collaborations. I mean, it was unheard of, right? Now it happens all the time, but back then no one was doing it. And it was a huge success. We'd end up bringing out DJ Jazzy Jeff, Ninth Wonder to DJ. I mean, these art shows at the Adidas store used to be crazy. So I was immersed in this new world of art. I was loving it. I felt so official. I'm like, oh, I work for a gallery, I had gone to Art Basel that year for the first time. It completely changed my life, completely. This is another one of those moments, one of those defining moments. And it's one of these memories I just, can't get out of my head. At the time, Shepard Fairey was exploding because Obama had just won. He'd become president, and the Hope poster was circulating everywhere. Street artists like Cause and Futura were just exploding everywhere, doing brand collaborations and really get their profile up. And because of my exposure to all this street art and pop art from Art Basel and working at the gallery, I knew my next thing. I was like, I'm going to be an artist. I want to be an artist. So I started making my own art. I started my own paintings based on pop culture references, and I would go off to start regularly exhibiting at different galleries and group shows. I spent that year learning the ins and outs of the fine art and street art world. But in 2009, I had a falling out with the owner, and I had to make a tough decision. I had to trust myself. My immersion in the street art world taught me that there were other avenues to present work. What was a gallery really, right? Some white walls, good lighting, some wine and cheese. Not always great wine, but wine. And my two colleagues that actually worked at the gallery with me, and one of the artists from the previous document project, we all banded together and we said, you know what, let's start our own club. And we called this club No Kings Collective. Man, talking a lot really drives your... We'd go off to do 2 pop-up art shows in 2009 and 2010. They were, again, pretty successful. Hundreds of people came out. It was amazing. And it really reminded me of the document project in the days when we had done those 2 exhibits. But again, we weren't selling enough artwork. The production costs were high. The time commitment was high. And it just wasn't working out. We fell on hard times, so everyone went their separate ways and we disbanded. I would eventually go on working for a blog. It was called Ready, Set, DC. And this was like the heyday, right? It was like Ready, Set, DC. Brightest Young Things had just popped off. I mean, it was just like, it was the golden years of DC, right? But I helped this blog, produce fashion shows, other social events. I was still helping out with other artists and consulting and, helping them put up exhibits. But Ready, Set, D would eventually go under. And I fell on hard financial times. I became unhoused. And I'd end up couch surfing for that year. But as I was couch surfing, all I could think about was the pop-ups that we did and the document. And just this world of art that I had just fallen in love with now. Other things popped up in my head too. I thought about going back to school. I thought about moving to another city to start fresh. But then randomly, I got an email from Ariana Austin and Alex Padro from the Shaw Main Street a couple weeks later. They were aware of the pop-up art shows that we had done previously, and they said, hey, we're bringing this new concept to Washington, D.C. It's called Nuit Blanche. And I was like, Nuit Blanche, what is that? What does that stand for? He said, it's French for art all night. And, they said, we have this warehouse, the corner of 7th and New York Avenue. It's huge. It's yours if you want it. So I went back to the band and I said, hey, let's reboot No Kings Collective. Let's try this again. And the 2 other members that were that had come with me from the gallery said, hey, sorry, we don't really believe in this. We got to move on. We got to make money, and this will never make money. So I said, fair enough. I understand that. But my friend who I had worked on the document project with said, you know what? Let's rock. So we put together a coalition of artists, DJs, musicians, line cooks, who, were doing pop-up, they were pop-up food vendors at our event, who would eventually move on later in years to win James Beard Awards and Michelin stars, so it's crazy to think about how all our beginnings, were. And we did the first Art All Night. That was 2011, I believe. Why don't I have that in my notes, guys? How many people do you think came out to that first Art All Night? Take a guess. Any guesses? Come on.
4,000.
We had 9,000 people come out. Yeah, it was crazy. I think I went up to the security guard and I said, hey, what was our clicker at? And he said, oh, it's said 860. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of people. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I've reset it 8 times. And I was like, what do you mean you've reset it 8 times? I was like, it resets after 1,000. And he goes, yeah, I've reset it 8 times. It was crazy. And then after all said and done, we made $5,000. Yeah. That might as well have been $5 million back then. I mean, it felt like we won the lottery, right? We were like, we did it. We made money off of this show, But I still had a scarcity mindset. It had been a really tough year, and all I wanted to do was squirrel away any extra cash if I ended up, any chance I got. And a week later, I ended up taking a gig at a bar to make some extra cash. And at the end of the night, a huge bar fight broke out. And I was trying to break it up, and one of the guys thought I was security or someone, somebody else on, whoever was getting into the fight. And he smashed a champagne bottle and he stabbed me in the arm and my neck. And I remember being rushed to the emergency room and immediately being taken into the back where they put me under an MRI machine. And this whole time I'm just awake because they can't put me under because I had lost so much blood. And I remember hearing the doctor say to the nurse, hey, we need to get, did you see his wallet? Where's his ID? The nurse was like, why do you need it so quickly? And she said, we need to get a hold of his next of kin ASAP, because if these MRI results come back and it's cut his artery, she was like, we can do a blood pack, but that'll keep him alive for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. So we need to get a hold of his family ASAP. I'll never forget that moment. It was another defining moment in my life. But luckily, they didn't get me. I'm here. I had a lot to think about while I was healing. I had been given a second chance, and I wasn't going to waste it. I got razor focused, and I knew I had to put in extra work for the time I had lost. And I knew I had to leave this nightlife behind, During my healing process, I couldn't paint, I couldn't dance, I couldn't bartend, I couldn't really do anything. And while I was healing, all I could think about was a Adidas collab that we had done. Because again, as I said earlier, no one was really doing that stuff, before. I had literally created something that had not been done before, right? And it wasn't normal for brands to team up with artists. And like I said, it happens all the time now, but it was rare back then. And even then, when I had been hurt, it wasn't happening a lot. I had a case study of how creating our own cultural currency really mattered. And as an artist and now curator, I realized that artists don't evolve if we don't put in the work just beyond the art. And the truth is, I really didn't need to bartend that night after that, amazing run at Art All Night. Could have been at home painting, could have been watching a movie, I could have been doing this or that. And I finally realized that partying could be considered a form of networking, but partying isn't building. And as cliche as it may sound, I really needed to grow up. I needed to prune that childish side of me that wanted to get drunk, go to the club, go out to a bar, go to these art openings and just mingle. That side of me that would get drunk, wake up, sober up, and do it all over again the next night. I had to tell myself the truth. Peter, it's time to grow the fuck up. Around when I was 28, I got myself out of debt. I finally got my own place, and I was able to stabilize myself. I think it was a couple weeks later, we got a call from a restaurant owner, and he said, hey, I went to your Art All Night event. We have this other warehouse in Georgetown. We're going to develop it into a restaurant and venue, but before we do, we want you guys to do something with it. So, and it was located on Water Street, so right under the bridge, under Whitehurst Parkway. And we came up with this awesome idea to call this exhibit the Water Street Project, right? Pretty clever, huh? But we got a coalition of artists together. We threw a series of events in there. I remember teaming up with All Things Go back then, and they were even in their infancy, and we threw this huge party one of the nights, and it was amazing. We were selling art at this show this time. We were making money. The bar was doing pretty good. We were making some decent cash. I'd rebuilt myself mentally and physically and proved that this model could work. In that same year, we got a email from the Crystal City bid. They reached out to us and said, hey, you guys interested in doing a mural? And we had never done a mural really before that. And we said, yeah, we can do a mural. That was a game changer project for us. So the truth I had to realize in this era that I had to reflect on was I was partying too much. It was taking away focus, and I had to get stabbed to realize that I wasn't building anything. I needed to refocus on No Kings Collective and building cultural currency. It sucked. The pain of being broke, the pain of feeling lost, the pain of not really having any direction. And the work I had to put in was I had to get more business savvy. And not just business savvy, I had to start building larger coalitions. Track 3, the grind. So like I said, the Crystal City bid reached out to us in 2014. And they said, hey, we have this wall. If you guys want to do a mural. It was massive. I mean, it was like 200 feet long by 20 feet tall. And they offered us $25,000 to do this mural. Again, I was like, man, we won the lottery. This is crazy. Someone's giving us $25,000 to paint. This is amazing, right? In retrospect, if a client came to me and said, now, we have a 200-foot long wall, 20 foot tall, I'd be like, this is going to cost $175,000. Are you kidding me? This is crazy, right? But it was our first gig. We didn't know anything. We just wanted the work. And $25,000 was the most money anyone had ever offered us. So, of course, we're going to take that bag. And it was our first big project, big public art project as No Kings Collective. Following the mural, we were approached by that same restaurant group that we had done the Georgetown project with. And they said to us, hey, we got this other abandoned basement space. You know, we're extending the lease, you know, into this space, and we were wondering if you guys had a longer term activation, you know, interest in partnering with us. So Hierarchy, the No Kings Collective Art Gallery was born. We were thrilled to have a brick and mortar space. I was like, I'm a gallery owner now, you know? No more spending money on production, lights, walls, or paint. All the infrastructure would be there for us. And we started putting on gallery shows, working with different artists, and it was a lot of work. It was a grind. And through the whole process, I learned so much about operating a brick and mortar. But you know what the biggest thing I learned about running a brick and mortar was? That I didn't want to run a brick and mortar. We had just done our first huge mural earlier that year. And we had to decide as a company if we wanted to be gallerists or do we want to be muralists and artists. It was hard. So I think, you know, we had a long talk and eventually we decided, you know what, we're going to let go of the gallery and we're going to pursue this life of being an artist / muralist. So for the next several years, we just were on the grind. We'd go off, you know, and work with clients like Audi, the Nationals, Nike, PBS, the Smithsonian, Apple, Gensler, I mean, you name it, all these top brands. And also at the same time, we're doing pop-ups as the opportunities arose. And while all this was happening, I'm personally learning to be the HR department, a CFO, a CMO, CEO, project manager, creative director, muralist, painter, you name it. And it was really rewarding and really frustrating trying to juggle all these different roles. And I think learning to manage people was the hardest thing to do. But you know what else is hard? Shooting your shot. In 2016, we did a pop-up art show in Union Market. And this is where I'd meet my future wife. She's actually my client. Yeah. And before I met her, you know, during, you know, the lead up to this moment, I'd say I was a pretty selfish person, right? Or I guess, you know, the typical single guy, right? I did things my way. I didn't really have to worry about making time for anybody else. But Allie wasn't really just somebody else. She's someone I wanted to spend time with. And, you know, she was really special to me. But she was also someone who would not put up with my bullshit. So personally, I was constantly shifting and learning, you know, and learning what it felt like to actually pursue someone who I could see building a life with myself. And at the exact same time, professionally, I was constantly shifting and learning what our company did, which was also really difficult. We had somewhat of a direction a few years ago, but now we were at a crossroads. Were we a mural company? Were we an events company? No Kings had become a nebulous thing, and the way people described it was different depending on how they interacted with the brand, whether it was a pop-up event or if it was a mural or if it was some other thing that we were doing. And we realized we were building a plane as we were flying it for years. And because we were so busy grinding, we never really had time to think about what the end goal was. But by now, we had built this huge amount of cultural currency for our brand. And we were asked for a million things and pulled in different directions from clients and brands and, you know, all sorts of stuff. But if it didn't align with our vision, we never went along with it. For instance, I remember a client reached out to us and said, hey, we have this new lobby of our new offices. We'd love to work with you guys. But then we found out they were the largest manufacturer of small arms. And we were like, you know what? Like, not fucking with this. So, you know, when we did projects back then, or when I personally designed experiences, I think about something that I'd want to attend, or, you know, would I want to interact with this thing? And I was never afraid to say no, because all my past experiences showed me that doing you differently really does work. We truly did not have a problem saying no. After all, we were No Kings Collective, right? We never compromised our morals or values, and we weren't willing to sell out or shapeshift in order to stay popular or relevant. Now here's the thing. Authenticity will always open more doors, and it gives you the power to also close the door as well. And I can honestly say I never regretted saying no to brands or deals, with big budgets. It just wasn't worth it. So during these grind years, we're really blowing up. We're really building our cultural currency. But I think as all this is happening, one of the biggest challenges of growth for us was keeping our ego in check. Confidence is on the spectrum of ego. It's a balanced ego. And we've definitely had our share of bad client relationships and beef with other artists and organizations. Some justified and maybe others not so much. But it happened. So on the spectrum of ego, on one side you have insecurity, and on the other side you have pride. And confidence is the balance in between. And growth is about finding the balance in between insecurity and pride. And if I had to guess, I'm probably preaching to the choir right now. Unbalanced ego can also be the nail in the coffin for some of your most important relationships. But that's talk for another day. Every project from the struggle bus days into the grind years built up a new set of skills for us. Working out deals, how to get spaces with developers and brokers, how to pitch companies, get money, sponsorship dollars, how to work with artists, how to set up gallery standard exhibitions. And we always approached our work with a collaborative mindset with and for the community. Water break. And around when I was 35 years old, all this came to a culmination, and it led to Umbrella, 2019. A developer had reached out to us and said, hey, I have this series of buildings. I just bought up the whole block, and I want to activate the space before I redevelop into a new building. And he said, I had, a huge marketing budget, but I don't want to do traditional marketing. I want to create an experience for people. And we said, you know what? We need to do a pop-up in here. And that's how Umbrella was born. And our model was simple. Don't tax the people. We stood on 3 pillars. Don't charge a participation fee. Make admission free so everyone can have accessibility to art. And give 100% of all art sales back to the artists. We had thought back to all those struggle years. I remember when I was couch surfing and didn't have these opportunities and thought to myself, what could be, something that was a foundation? How could we help other artists that were in that phase of their life or as they were emerging or developing? How many people think came out to this show, Umbrella? Take some guesses.
30,000.
We had 16,000 people come out the first year at Umbrella over a 3-day run. And I think we had done over $180,000 in art sales that went directly back to the artists. Wow. But we weren't sure if this was just another one-off pop-up or if we wanted to do it again, because up till then we hadn't really done anything more than a one-off. Fast forward, COVID hits. I don't even remember what happened that year. So coming out of COVID, another year later, so now we're 2 years past the first Umbrella. The same developer comes back to us. Now we have this brand new shiny building and says, hey, you guys want to do this again? And we said, yeah, let's do it. And this time it was bigger, it was better, and we knew that we had now galvanized Umbrella, and we knew we had to keep on doing it. That same year, coming out of COVID, every time I watched the news, I was also seeing all this anti-AAPI hate going on, elderly people were attacked. And through all these years of, building these skills, putting together events and working with artists and coalition building, I really wanted to do something about it. And the Red Eye was born. I said, all these restaurants are in pain, all these people are being attacked, and, everyone's just not in a good place. No one is okay. So I put together a coalition of 53 AAPI-owned restaurants. We shut down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we followed the same model as Umbrella. We're not going to charge these restaurants any money. We put together all the production for it. We did all the marketing, and they kept 100% of all their sales. Now, the funny thing is, I thought, first year food fair, we're coming out of COVID, people are uncomfortable, maybe 10,000, 15,000 people might come out. So our floor plan for the event space was accommodated, I think, 20,000 people. We had shut down Pennsylvania Avenue from 3rd to 7th Street. I think it was the Tuesday before the event, we had maxed at 50,000 RSVPs. And I thought to myself, there's no way. No way 50,000 people are gonna come out. According to the Metropolitan Police Department and their helicopter flyover and heat mapping resource, they told us they believe around 65,000 people had come out, of which only 20,000 people came out, right? So 45,000 people were pissed. But still, we did $450,000 in sales directly going to the restaurants. And because this other 45,000 people couldn't come out, the DC government came back to us and said, hey, our studies also showed that you guys did $5 million of economic impact to all the other restaurants in the area because they couldn't get into your event. So, great. So both Umbrella and Red Eye were like mixtape tracks that made it big on the radio. But eventually the radio became less relevant. Streaming took over. I needed to figure out what to do next because I'd say quietly I started to realize that No Kings Collective was not fulfilling me. It might sound sappy at this point, but Allie and I had been going steady for about 3 years now. We'd gotten engaged, and in 2021 is the same year we got married. Yes, work was important, success was cool, but success creates a shift, whether you like it or not. And COVID was also an eye-opener. I know I wasn't the only one who realized that grind culture was taking a toll on all of us. And for a while, before COVID, society and the culture glamorized the grind and it glorified the struggle. And I lived the struggle, for sure. And I thought back to the Wonder Years and all those years spent, riding that struggle bus. And as wild as it sounds, I gotta thank COVID. COVID was the reason I was able to put the grind into perspective. You have to be self-aware to know when you're at your best and when you're at your worst. The truth is, I didn't want to be defined by the grind anymore, even though that's what I had been accustomed to. And that 21-year-old geriatric b-boy who had to tell himself the truth, all the way to this now 37-year-old entrepreneur, it was a different type of pain this time, but not the pain of a bruised hip or a sprained ankle, not the searing hot pain of a champagne bottle going into my neck or arm. This pain was more of like a dull ache, an intense, annoying pain I couldn't escape. There were new levels of accountability now, not just to work, but to my life partner. A new level of self-awareness I had to accept. Self-work is hard work. Track 4, a new hope. The truth was I had to face myself and realize that something was not fulfilling me. I was at another crossroad. Sure, the murals made money, but I wasn't designing them, and I had no passion for painting large scale anymore. Just like the b-boying days also, my body was catching up to me. It's dangerous being on a lift really high up in the air, right? Carrying 5-gallon buckets up and down flights of steps, working through the blistering sun and the cold. It really takes a toll on your body. I had to trust myself to walk away like I did the art gallery at the National Harbor more than a decade ago. I gotta keep it real with y'all. The last 2 years have been the biggest growth moment of my entire life. I hit the reset button and started a new business and brand. This year is year 5 of Umbrella. Woo! Wow. And my wife and I literally grew a new human who turns 1 today. It's his birthday today. And now I'm just constantly thinking about ways to set the foundation for our son's growth. And truth is, I've also been struggling with a lot of pain, losing a friend and business partner and a brand that I had built for almost 20 years. But I've also realized that this is a new chapter of growth for me, with a new business and as a new father. One thing I've learned is that forgiveness, accountability, and awareness are also pivotal to growth. You have to face the truth, feel the pain, and put in the work. I haven't mastered it. I'm still growing. I reflect back on my relationship with my parents, and I can honestly now, being a father, say that I really, really love my parents. I really do. And they did so much for my brother and I, and they sacrificed so much. But I can also say I don't love how I was parented growing up. I want to break that cycle. And what I mean by that is I want to support my son's decisions and show him love no matter what he decides to do with his life. I don't want my son to ever believe that he's a fuck up because his choices might take him on a different path and it might be different than my expectations. And if there ever comes a time when he believes that he's a failure, I want to be by his side to tell him the truth, that he's not. Unless he decides that he's a Dallas Cowboys fan, then I'll tell him he's a failure. The thing about mixtapes is that you can always record over the tracks, but once you're done recording, you can't skip the tracks. You can fast forward, you can rewind, but on real mixtapes, you can't skip over any tracks. Growth is non-linear. It has seasons, cycles, challenges, and breakthroughs. Growth is slow, and oftentimes it's uncomfortable. And again, if I'm being honest with you, I didn't want to be here today, but I'm trying to get on track, and I want to keep growing. I don't want to be stuck anymore. Growth is often talked about as a journey, one that challenges us, pushes us to our limits, and defines our sense of identity. We often try to separate these two paths and compartmentalize. We say that they're separate, but the truth is that they're deeply intertwined. I'm not an expert on growth, but I think of growth as a wheel with 3 spokes. Spoke 1, truth. Spoke 2, pain. Spoke 3, work. And sometimes you hit a snag in the road and you get stuck on one of these spokes longer than others. Sometimes, you never leave that place and you get stuck forever. And which is to say, again, some people just don't grow and they're stuck. But real growth is a never-ending cycle of truth, pain, and work. Thank you so much. Am I standing up here?
Yeah. Okay. I think we have time for 2 questions. So, who wants to go? Right here.
What are your parents saying now?
My dad used to complain all the time. And even into my 30s, like when we started talking again, he'd always complain. And I think what I got to shut him up was eventually one day I just threw my tax return at him and said, hey, you gotta stop worrying about me. And he just looked at it and said, okay. Yeah, so there it is. Any other questions? Yes.
Did they apprehend the person who stabbed you?
Yeah.
Okay. One more. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
In your opinion, can you have growth without pain?
Yeah, you can, for sure. But I think as you develop in life and you go through professional and personal growth, I think at a surface level, when you talk about growth, like little things, for sure you can have growth without pain. But I think real growth requires some type of sacrifice. And, it may not be something that pain is different for everyone, right? Pain could be, oh man, I had to spend all these, do all these all-nighters in college to, get my degree, right? Pain comes in many different forms, and it's all about how you define pain. That's it? Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. So, we're going to do a few things. First, volunteer team, Don't think you got lucky that I skipped a slide accidentally and you don't get to be embarrassed. That's not going to happen. I skipped a slide, but it is time to embarrass you. So, volunteer team, rise. As I said in the beginning, you guys can sit now. As I said in the beginning, we are a volunteer machine. Next week is Thanksgiving. We're all thinking about gratitude and what thankfulness means in our lives, the people that are meaningful in our lives. We would not have Creative Mornings DC without the folks that you saw standing just now. I just want that to be really clear. I do very little to make this happen. It is this team. I am so grateful for all of you and enjoy embarrassing you in public. So thank you for allowing me to do that as well. If you are interested in becoming a volunteer, slide into our DMs because I don't have Shahir's email memorized, and let us know. Come and join us. It's a party. All right. Hey, Obi. We are going to do our minute of silence, our minute of communal collective silence together, a piece of our Creative Mornings history that I continue on from Obi's legacy, because I think it's necessary and meaningful for us to have a minute without the devices and the stress and the demands in our faces, and to do that together. So we are going to do that. One of Peter's slides, one of the lower tagline said, "Hustling isn't healing." And that is just really sticking with me. Peter and I also was making commentary. I apologize. I was like, oh my God, we're so old. Coming up during that hustle and grind culture, and to see where we are now. Do you all remember girl bossing? Remember living girl bossing? Oh, good grief. So just a minute of my vulnerability. When I think of growth, I think what I'm working on mostly is unlearning that perfectionism, unlearning that grind culture. So I want us all to be leaving today thinking about what our area of work and growth is, what we're working through in ourselves. Peter, thank you for the very vulnerable, beautiful conversation. Thank you for agreeing to do it during this time. I know it's been rough. And also during the walkthrough, you had said, oh, it's going to be Kiddo's birthday the day of, and happy birthday, Kiddo! And very much happy 5th birthday to Umbrella. So after our minute of collective silence that we're going to have, it is Umbrella time. If you have the chance, if you have the time, you don't have to go immediately to the office. You can go into Umbrella as soon as you exit through the elevator and go across the lobby and then go up another elevator, and then you're there. There are directionals. You'll get there. So going to think about what we are working on in ourselves for a minute, and then we are going to go into Umbrella and go about our day. And reminder, we can, yes.
Please come upstairs after this.
Yes.
The extra security we had to get was so expensive. I need you guys to
Yes, yes. We are going to justify the security expense. And and then the last reminder, we will see you again in person in February of 2026. We're all going to take a little breather for the next 2 months a necessary pause, break of time, but you can hit us up on the socials and the emails and stuff if you want to chat, suggest something, etc. And also stay tuned because we have some announcements that I can't make officially right now because I didn't sign the MOU yet, but we've got stuff coming up, fun stuff. So stay tuned. Okay. And here we go. Minute of collective silence. Okay. Thank you, Creative Mornings DC. Thank you, visitors. Thank you, newbies. We'll see you again in February.